Well, it looks like we're gonna get WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. WrestleMania 43 has been leaked to be going to Saudi Arabia. It's a Saudi Mania. It is in 2 years' time, everybody. What do you think? There's a lot to unpack with all of this because there's obviously a lot of controversy around Saudi Arabia, WWE TKO's partnership, everything that they have done, and they've been doing this for several years now. Does this come as a big surprise that WWE, I should say really TKO, is taking the opportunity to take just dump trucks full of money and guzzling it down to go to Saudi Arabia for their biggest show of the year? We're already getting another Las Vegas WrestleMania, so it seems like now our options are down to you go to Vegas or you go to Saudi to have WrestleMania. On Snapchat of all places, Saudi Arabia just leaked the WrestleMania 43 details and that they are going to be doing this ahead of WWE. So I imagine in the next day or two, we are going to have WWE confirm this. At this point for me, I'm kind of just numb to it all, where I'm like, I'm not surprised that they're doing this. I think it was an inevitability that they were going to have a WrestleMania, a 2-night WrestleMania over there in Saudi Arabia, because in 2026 we are going to be getting the first Saudi Arabia Royal Rumble. We had the Greatest Royal Rumble. This is different. That one was for the Greatest Royal Rumble Championship, which they never brought back, and I wish they would because it was green and it was awesome. But it felt like, okay, we're getting a Royal Rumble over there. They're going to want to do the WrestleMania, and by Dave Meltzer and all the outlets out there, they were reporting that they had planned to have WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia for WrestleMania 44, but that's now been bumped up. Now, I first want to go through what is cited by Meltzer and what Saudi Arabia's position on all of this, what they're looking for out of a WrestleMania, because it's getting funny. That's what I'm gonna say. Meltzer says, quote, "They have matches that they want and they're working really, really hard to get. Even though it's a couple of years, I don't know if they're gonna be able to get them, but they're gonna spend a lot of money to get what they want, obviously. We're talking about anyone coming out of retirement that wants to come out of retirement of big name value and will be able to get a lot of money for this show. That's what they want." Brian Alvarez continues by saying, quote, "So we're talking there's going to be Undertaker versus Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold versus The Rock. Is that what we're looking at here?" And I say yes. I have no doubt that they're going to try and give us Austin versus Rock one more time. Could you imagine if they actually do this? It's going to be so silly and just awful. Can we rewind the tape a little bit for a moment and talk about Goldberg versus Undertaker, or Goldberg versus The Fiend? Oh yeah, we also had Triple H. We had DX going up against Undertaker and Kane. We've had our moments in Saudi Arabia. And I want to talk further about Austin and Taker and all of this. But let's look at that big history we now have with Saudi. From 2018 is where it all began. You had the Greatest Royal Rumble. And the uproar back then, from what I remember, yeah, nobody was happy about it, and people are still not happy about it. The sports washing, just had the treatment of women, human rights, all of it. There's all of that. I acknowledge all of it. I see it all, and I don't agree with what they're doing. It's a giant mega corporation that's taking gobs of money to be able to profit from. So that's what it is. Then we had Crown Jewel 2018, and that's where we saw the return of D-Generation X going up against Kane and The Undertaker. And that's where Shawn Michaels came out of retirement to have this match. And oh boy, wasn't that just a big kerfuffle of just imploding everything, just going. Triple H getting injured in the ring, Kane's mask falling off. Taker, I think, was the only one that ended up being healthy in that thing. Super Showdown was where we had Undertaker versus Goldberg. I don't need to remind you, but this footage will remind you of just how absolutely insane that whole thing was. And both men have talked about it, how it's just not what they wanted to do. I mean, don't get concussed in the ring is probably the first thing to do and to avoid, or hitting your head against a locker too many times before you do the match. That's probably the first thing you should learn from that. But Saudi keeps doing this. They've done this since the inception, where they're like, they reported that they wanted guys like Yokozuna, or they want to have Ultimate Warrior, and now I bet they're going to turn around and say, hey, for our Mania in 2 years, we want Hulk Hogan, brother. Like, they're going to just keep trying to pull out everybody that is just literally impossible to do. And a lot of Goldberg too. We had a lot of Brock Lesnar. Goldberg went up against The Fiend. That was Crown Jewel 2019. That's where Goldberg beat The Fiend for the Universal Championship, which was a horrible mistake. We've seen Roman Reigns versus Logan Paul, and most recently at Night of Champions, we had CM Punk versus John Cena. So they do bring out the stars for these shows. At every opportunity, they try to grab anybody and everybody they can to market it, to have the biggest amount of star power they can. But there's a lot that can be impacted with this WrestleMania. We're gonna get through 42. We're gonna go back to Vegas, and we're gonna do it all over again over there. And we might actually have a lot of fun for WrestleMania this year. Maybe the Mania main event will not end with Travis Scott. Maybe it'll be something different, or it's another celebrity. But will they pull out all the stops to get the likes of Austin, Undertaker, Shawn Michaels back out of retirement? It's so hard to say. My gut says they won't. That those guys will say, nah, I'm retired. However, depending on how many millions they want to throw at somebody like Stone Cold Steve Austin, I mean, it's very possible that they want to go ahead and do that. I mean, if you're getting paid 10, 15, 20 million dollars for 20 minutes of in the ring brawling, is Shawn Michaels or Undertaker going to turn that down? Undertaker, I honestly feel like would do it, only because anytime you hear him on his podcast or anything, he's always just wanting to go. He wants to get back in the ring. I don't need to see it. I've seen enough, but I could see these guys going at it one more time and the price is right. I'd be kind of disappointed personally as a fan if I saw Austin showing up, because I'm a big Stone Cold fan growing up. So I'd be disappointed if I saw Austin come back to Saudi Arabia. Like if I had him this coming WrestleMania and it was him versus CM Punk, I'd just be tickled and go bananas for it. I'd be so into it. But it's something about the reason why they would do it. You know what I mean? The context there being that he and these other legends would be only doing these matches for the gigantic payday that they would receive. And I understand money is great, but it's just kind of icky. But here's where I get worried with all of these potential legends or whoever they can round up to go for this WrestleMania, this two-night WrestleMania. WWE themselves will always want to have star-studded WrestleManias. They want the spectacle, they want the WrestleMania moments, so we get the likes of a Brock Lesnar. You have the final boss showing up for WrestleMania. You have celebrities doing celebrity matches. Johnny Knoxville versus Sami Zayn, super hilarious and a lot of fun. I think we're gonna see that again, just amped up like just tenfold. And unfortunately, it wouldn't surprise me if we did have something like Austin versus Punk once in a lifetime at WrestleMania in 2 years, or The Undertaker coming out of retirement, even to do like a, not even really a match, but just more of a moment. Undertaker comes out like he's done really on TV. They could do that. You have Taker out there, the music hits, the lights go out, and he's in the ring, or he does a slow entrance, and he just choke slams somebody in the ring. You give everybody a moment. I would worry that John Cena, as an example, somebody who is in his retirement year, comes to an end, and then in 2 years at WrestleMania, they bring John back out. But maybe not. Maybe he would actually say no. Shawn Michaels. Oh, there's a tempting one. Mr. NXT. What if he goes up against somebody from NXT? That would be wild. Or maybe he finally has that dream match against AJ Styles. But the impact too is not only just, okay, we as fans, we see these legends that are very much retired being pulled out of retirement to do whatever in the ring, and maybe it goes okay, but maybe it falls apart. But the other problem is how much of the TV time, the time given dedicated to these legends, to these storylines that are specifically being designed for the Saudi Arabia government and the Saudi crowd. So for example, WWE has done this where they give the likes of Mansoor or Sami Zayn quite the platform in Saudi Arabia. Big wins, big moments that they can celebrate and crown, because Saudis want to be able to say, hey, look at this. And WWE goes, yeah, look how great this is. Everyone is happy, right? Well, not everybody. I can see, unfortunately, where they would double down on this. The Saudi Arabian government's influence on all of this is huge. And you got to think that when we do eventually get there, and we'll talk in 2 years, I hope, but when we talk about this, and it's actually getting to the road to WrestleMania 43, it will be very interesting to see who they were pushing at that time, and will it give us any indication of what influence is going on behind the scenes. Saudi's paying unspeakable amounts of money for WrestleMania. Is it going to be like $1 billion for it? No, but it's probably hundreds of millions of dollars for the show, and for all the stars that they want to have for it. I imagine it would be a star-studded event for 2 nights. But are they going to be pushing to say, we're paying all this money, here's who we would like to see featured, here's who we would like to see maybe even win the matches? So do you end up in a scenario where someone like a Sami Zayn, who I love, but is Sami going to win the following year's Royal Rumble to get to WrestleMania in Saudi, to have a world title match? And instead of something like that feeling earned, that he went through this giant story for a year to get to that point, and it's all kind of fluid and natural with the story arc, does it end up feeling more like this is shoehorned, positioned in a way because they want to have the big moment in Saudi and show that off. And that's where I get worried, is that we don't get quality storylines, which is something that we're missing sometimes in WWE already today, because it's so focused on celebrities, advertising, making everybody else happy, and not so much the fans happy in terms of what they're seeing on a week-to-week basis. It also takes away from potentially a lot of different spots for a lot of superstars that wrestle all the time that we get to see every single week. And this has always been a problem with WWE. When we had like one night WrestleMania, you would have so many people going all year long, but then get shoved down the card, or they're not featured, or they're not in a title program. For example, Chris Jericho, Kevin Owens wasn't for the main title. That was given to Goldberg right before WrestleMania. So then these guys didn't have the main title to fight over in what was one of the best storylines going on at the time. CM Punk's pipe bomb was, a lot of it was dedicated to what was going on in WWE at that time, where The Rock would show up randomly and he's got the match, the 1 year build with John Cena, and that's taking up that whole spot. So these guys that are working all year round, and girls, they are not going to get those opportunities because those spots are being given up to the biggest stars. And I understand you want to market with the biggest stars possible. It all makes sense from the business side, but it does get a little scummy when it's Saudi Arabia doing it, and they're just saying, we want Austin in the main event of night 2 of WrestleMania against Punk or whoever. And is that what's going to happen? Instead of what might be the biggest story going on that year, and for all we know, it's Braun Breaker in the main event, or finally getting to the main event, something like that. And those matches are being relegated further and further down the card. The other piece too is the women's side. Now the women's evolution, no pun intended, but the women's evolution with Saudi Arabian shows with WWE, it has evolved. We've gone from all the women showing up and getting maybe one match and maybe a couple of minutes on the show and wrestling in t-shirts, to them showing up and getting more time featured, more matches on a card, and they're not in t-shirts, not in oversized baggy t-shirts. They're actually wearing their gear. But I would worry again that with the women on the card for WrestleMania, they wouldn't have as many matches featured. They wouldn't be in high profile programs. They would be middle of the road, middle of the card, like a Rhea Ripley wouldn't be headlining WrestleMania night 1 or night 2. They would want the men featured at the top, and the women can maybe open the show or be right slapped in the middle for 8 minutes to 10 minutes. This also ties into just the general direction TKO has been taking WWE. Under Vince McMahon, something like ticket prices, for example, were never this high. And TKO has been going on record lately talking about how there has been more room to increase ticket prices. Basically, people are willing to pay for it, which they are, because the arenas are filled, these PLEs are filled, they go overseas, it's a sellout crowd. So these markets are paying for it, and yet they are still seeing that there's room to be able to charge even more for tickets. And they're atrocious as they are, frankly. Under Vince, they never made the ticket prices that high, and it was affordable for families to go. They didn't have advertising all over the place. And I understand it, and ads on the mat don't really bother me that much. Just kind of tune it out and it just blends into everything else nowadays. But the focus for the last few years really has felt like it's advertising, promotional stuff first, and the showcase of the product and the ads and making sponsors feel happy, versus let's tell some really cool, compelling stories. It's almost like these matches need to fit into this show, versus we've got all these incredible feuds and storylines that we've been building, and it's going to culminate at this show. You know what I mean? It's kind of the inverse of it. We have a WrestlePalooza. Now we're going to make this the biggest thing ever because we want it, as TKO has said, they want to make it the next big 4 of the PLEs for the entire year. They want it to be up there with a SummerSlam for WrestlePalooza, which is a lofty goal. And we're seeing more and more of this, right? Like Saudi Arabia is one big aspect of this with WrestleMania 43, and how they want to bring out tons of legends for this, as they've been reported on saying. We see this WWE already with like Brock Lesnar shows up at SummerSlam, and then Brock's just not on TV, and there's no storyline being built whatsoever other than Brock just saying he's going to see him at WrestlePalooza to fight John Cena. That's it. You have AJ Lee making a huge return. Awesome. Everyone's pumped. Everyone's excited. Love having her back on TV. That storyline has been working. I think it's one of the best ones WWE has been working with right now. And it'll be so cool to see what she's going to do. But it's another big name that you have to bring back in order to boost a big show, a WrestlePalooza. For all we know, Chris Jericho is the next one that will show up. And then maybe it is an Austin or somebody else that they can pull from. But eventually you're gonna start running out of names. So are we mad that WrestleMania 43 is going to be in Saudi Arabia? The outrage will be there across the internet. Everyone will be mad, but it's nothing new, and I don't think that it's ultimately very surprising that this has happened. I think, like I said, Royal Rumble was the first trial to see how this would go for one of their big major events of the year, and they're fast tracking to get a WrestleMania. I hope for fans that we are not going to have a product that is going to be just going from Vegas to Saudi Arabia for the biggest shows, simply and ultimately because who's got the biggest wallet and who's willing to pay for it. I think that they can really start alienating a lot of fans. And by having WrestleMania 43 in Saudi Arabia, I understand Saudi wanting to bring in more tourism, really trying to expand that piece. But I worry that on the other side, you are alienating huge amount of your fans internationally, in the United States markets, Canada too, where people are priced out, they can't go to these shows that they want to, they're not made available anywhere near them, and it's also the whole PR of it, I think too, if WWE even cares about that anymore. It don't look very good, but it's not a new thing that they've been doing. What did Vince used to say? It's all about the money. Yeah, that hasn't changed anything, has it? It's been amped up since then. What are your thoughts on Saudi Arabia WrestleMania 43? Comment below, and if you guys want to talk more WWE about Legends and how I mentioned they bring Brock back, they bring AJ Lee back, we're talking about all of that and how they might run out of Legends at some point. So click this video right here and have yourself a great day. See ya.